You can be exhausted and still not know how to settle. And that does not mean you are doing rest wrong. A lot of people think tiredness should automatically lead to calm. They think that if they are drained enough, their body should just let go. That if they are worn out enough, rest should happen naturally. But that is not always how it works. Because being tired is not the same as feeling safe enough to soften. You can be deeply exhausted and still feel slightly braced. You can want rest with your whole mind and still feel like your body does not know how to land. You can lie down, stop moving, turn things off, and still feel like something inside you is not fully convinced that it is okay to drop. And when that happens, people often blame themselves. They think, what is wrong with me? Why am I this tired and still not calm? Why can I never seem to rest like a normal person? But sometimes the problem is not that you are bad at resting. Sometimes the problem is that your system has been living in so much low-grade activation, pressure, switching, and alertness that tiredness no longer leads directly to settling. It only leads to collapse without relief, to exhaustion without softness, to stopping without arrival. And those are not the same thing. So this is not really a story about why you are tired. It is about why your body may still not know how to feel finished. Point 1. Exhaustion and relaxation are not the same thing. One of the most important things to understand is that exhaustion and relaxation are not the same experience. They can overlap, but they are not identical. Exhaustion means you have spent a lot of energy, a lot of focus, a lot of emotional bandwidth, a lot of nervous system effort. Relaxation is different. Relaxation is what happens when your system begins to believe it does not need to keep holding itself up in the same way. It is a shift, a softening, a lowering of internal grip. And the reason this matters is because many people confuse the two. They think, if I am tired enough, I should be able to relax. But tiredness does not automatically create safety. Tiredness does not automatically turn off vigilance. Tiredness does not automatically teach the body how to loosen. That is why someone can feel heavy, sleepy, depleted, and still not settled. Still restless. Still slightly on edge. Still mentally moving. Still pulled toward distraction or noise. Still unable to fully drop into rest. And when people do not understand this, they often shame themselves for the wrong thing. They call themselves dramatic, difficult, overcomplicated, bad at slowing down. But the truth may be much simpler than that. You are not failing at calm. You may just be tired in a body that still has not received the signal that it is safe to stop holding on. Point 2. Your body may still be acting like something is still required of you. This is where a lot of people get stuck. Their day may be over. The task may be done. The conversation may be finished. The pressure may have technically ended. And still, their body behaves as if something is still required. Still checking. Still anticipating. Still scanning. Still half ready. Still waiting for the next thing. And if that sounds familiar, it can be deeply confusing. Because from the outside, nothing is happening. You may be sitting on the couch, lying in bed, looking at the wall, holding your phone without really wanting it, doing nothing that looks urgent. But inside, part of you still feels like you are not fully off duty. Like you cannot completely release. Like there is still one thread attached somewhere. And that matters more than people realize. Because a nervous system that still feels slightly responsible, slightly alert, slightly on call, does not settle easily. Even when it is tired. Especially when it is tired. Many overloaded people live in a constant state of microdemand. A message could come in. A task could be forgotten. A decision still needs to be made. A small problem is still waiting. Something might need your attention any minute. And over time, the body can start treating this state as normal. So later, when the schedule stops, the system does not immediately stop with it. Your calendar may have paused. Your nervous system may not have. And that is why you can feel exhausted and still unable to really let go. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because your system may still be acting like the day is not fully over. Point 3. Stillness can feel unfamiliar after too much overstimulation. Another reason tired people do not settle is because stillness can start to feel unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things do not always feel good right away, even when they are what you need. If your mind has been moving quickly for too long, if your attention has been pulled in too many directions, if your system has adapted to constant stimulation, then quiet does not always feel restful at first. Sometimes it feels awkward, flat, exposed, a little irritating, a little empty, a little too open. And that can be hard to explain, especially to yourself. Because part of you truly wants rest. You want the day to stop. You want the pressure to end. You want your body to come down. But the moment things actually get still, something in you becomes uncomfortable. Not always dramatically. Sometimes just subtly. A small restlessness. A slight agitation. A feeling that you need to reach for something. Move a little. Check something. Turn something on. Not because you love stimulation so much, but because stillness no longer feels natural enough to enter without friction. That does not mean stillness is bad for you. It does not mean you are resistant for no reason. It may simply mean your system has been living in motion for so long that stillness now feels less like home and more like unfamiliar territory. And unfamiliar territory is hard to settle into, even when you are exhausted. Because the body does not only ask, "Am I tired?" It also asks, "Do I know this place well enough to soften here?" Point 4. Tired people often reach for quick relief instead of deeper settling. This is one of the hardest parts to notice without shame. When people are very tired, they often do not move toward deep rest first. They move toward quick relief. A scroll. A video. Background noise. A snack. A small distraction. A little hit of something that lowers discomfort fast. And because they are already exhausted, they often judge themselves harshly for it. They think, "If I am this tired, why am I still doing this? Why can't I just put everything down? Why do I keep reaching for things that obviously do not help enough?" But quick relief and deep settling are not the same thing. Quick relief helps lower the edge. It gives the mind something else to touch. It takes the pressure down just enough to make the moment more tolerable. And that relief is real. It is important to say that clearly. It is not fake. It is not pointless. It does help in the moment. But it often does not bring the body all the way into restoration. It helps you endure. It does not always help you land. And when a person has been overloaded for too long, the system often starts choosing what feels fastest rather than what feels deepest. Not because it is stupid. Not because it is lazy. But because speed matters when you are already stretched thin. So the tired brain does not always ask, "What will restore me most?" Sometimes it asks, "What will make this feel easier right now?" And that is how people end up exhausted while still circling around the thing they actually need. Not because they do not want rest, but because quick relief becomes easier to access than true settling. Point 5. What you may need is not more effort, but a gentler descent. This is the part that changes the whole emotional tone of the problem. Because once people realize they are tired but cannot settle, they often respond with more pressure. They try harder. Force themselves into silence. Demand instant calm. Treat rest like another thing they should be able to do correctly. And that usually makes the system tighter, not softer. Because what an overloaded body often needs is not more effort. It is a gentler descent. A slower entry. A transition. Something that helps the pace change without demanding that the whole system drop all at once. If your brain has been moving fast all day, going straight from intensity into full stillness can feel abrupt. Almost like emotional whiplash. And when the transition is missing, rest can feel unreachable. Not because it cannot help you, but because your system was never guided into it. This is why gentler signals matter. Less input. Less switching. Softer light. Less urgency. A more repetitive rhythm. A more familiar environment. Something that tells the body, little by little, the pace is changing now. You do not have to stay this alert. You do not have to keep bracing in the same way. You do not have to fall into perfect calm immediately. Because sometimes settling begins before the rest itself. It begins in the transition that helps your system believe it is allowed to come down. And that shift is often much smaller, much slower, and much kinder than people expect. Not dramatic. Not impressive. Just enough to help the body stop feeling like it has to remain on. Closing. If you feel tired but cannot settle, that does not mean you are broken. It does not mean you are doing rest wrong. And it does not mean there is something shameful about the way your body responds. It may simply mean your body is exhausted, but still not convinced that it is safe to let go. It may mean your system has spent too long living in alertness, too long adapting to overload, too long moving without enough space to truly come down. And when that happens, rest does not always feel like relief right away. Sometimes it feels awkward. Sometimes it feels unreachable. Sometimes it feels like something your mind wants, but your body cannot yet receive. That is not laziness. That is not weakness. That is not personal failure. That is what overload can feel like from the inside. And once you understand that, you can stop fighting yourself in the wrong language. Because the answer may not be trying harder to relax. It may be helping your system trust the way down again. More gently. More slowly. With less pressure. With less shame. Because real rest is not a performance. It is not a moral achievement. Sometimes it is something your body has to relearn how to believe in. When you feel most exhausted, what usually happens first? You go quiet, you reach for your phone, or you feel even